morning and welcome to today's presentation. Thank you for joining us. My name is Darren Tolley and I am one of the account managers here at EBS, your experienced technology partner. For those who may not be familiar with us, EBS has been a trusted provider for over 46 years. We specialise in the deployment and support of Sage Business Management and Microsoft solutions, alongside managed services, cybersecurity and secure on-premises and cloud-based infrastructure. Today, we are pleased to be joined by Sicon, a long-standing partner of EBS and a Sage Tech Partner Plus. Sicon provides a wide range of innovative solutions designed to enhance and extend Sage 200. I would therefore like to extend a warm welcome to Chris Donlan.
Good morning.
Who is our Partner Account Manager, who will provide an overview of Sicon Approvals Expenses. The solution helps simplify, I'll say that again, helps simplify. It's too simple, I can't even say it. Simplify expense capture, strengthen approval control, and reduce manual processing within Sage 200 Professional. We are recording today's presentation and we'll make the recording available to you in the next few days. You can also find a range of previous recordings on our YouTube channel, so please do subscribe if you would like to be notified when new videos are added. If you have any questions during the session, please add them to the chat. There will also be an opportunity to raise questions at the end of the presentation during the Q&A session. With that, I will now hand it over to Chris. Good morning, Chris.
Okay. Hiya, Darren. Good to see you again.
You too.
Especially on a hot day like today. But good morning, everybody. I hope you're all well. I'm going to be taking you on a tour around what we call, in general terms, Sicon Approvals. You're probably looking at the moment at the Sicon website. If you want to learn more about the module in particular that we're going to be covering off today, which is expense approval. But as you'll see, as I'm circling this list of options over here to the right, it does cover a number of different modular disciplines. Okay, so there may be people out there who after today might be thinking, ooh, getting somebody to approve my invoices that I put onto the system so I can then pay them confidently with invoice approval. You might be thinking I can get a broader range of people to engage with raising purchasing requests and getting those approved to become purchase orders. So these modules can be just added as you go along. But as I say, today, primarily, we're going to be looking at expense approval. If you want to learn more about it, do feel free to click on the features and benefits. There's also a product video that you can watch as well. Probably won't be as detailed as what I'm going to go through with you in a few moments, but you've also got access into the help and user guide, which is effectively the manual for the product itself. That's got some intellectual copyright attached to it, so if you do want to look through it and gain a better insight into what it's capable of, then you will just need to register with an email address. A member of our marketing team will check that out and then they'll grant you approval to be able to go in and have a look at that guide. Okay, so without further ado, let me get straight in and put some more context around this approval portfolio. So the first thing you'll notice is that I'm not in Sage. Okay, I'm actually looking at this through a web portal. Okay, and what I'm going to go through with you today, I'm going to use the web because it's a bigger screen. Okay, but if I just show you over here, everything you're going to see me do, okay, can be achieved on a mobile app, and this will run on either iOS or Android devices. It is part of the user license, which I'll go into in a bit more detail shortly. So you can use it across both platforms to suit yourselves. So as I say, I'll come back and we'll reference what the additional benefits of using the app could mean. Okay, so the first thing, as I say, to mention is the fact that none of the people involved in the process I'm going to go through with you now need to be Sage users. Okay, so they don't need a license for Sage 200. They could be Sage users in their own job, but if you want them to engage with the approval mechanism, whether that's just for expenses or if you wish to, go further in your deployment of this portfolio, then all you need to really consider is how many people in my organization do I need to buy a license for in order to use one or more of those approval modules. Now, you can probably appreciate that we do deal with a lot of large companies. And in one case, without mentioning names, we have a healthcare authority and they have for around 2,000 people hooked into doing various different tasks on the approval portfolio. So this product does have legs. It has capacity to help larger organizations to unite their workforce and begin to submit information and get things processed. They only needed to buy a 100 user system in order to be granted an unlimited user license. Okay, so there's minimum is one, as you might imagine, but there's no sort of structure in the sense you've got to buy them in units of 10 or 20. Just buy as many as you want. You can add to it as your workforce increases, of course. If people leave you, just reassign the license to their replacement, or if they're not being replaced, then just cancel the license. Everything from Sicon, very similar to Sage, is on a monthly subscription. And I'm sure if you ask Darren, he'll provide you with pricing on that to suit your own particular circumstances. So I'm logged in as a member of my demo company team. Her name is Sandra Markey. And Sandra has a pretty much global access across the entire approval portfolio, as you can see, but very much like Sage, you can tailor those menus to suit individual user needs. Okay, if you've only bought one module like expenses, the one that we're going to be covering now, then of course that will be the only option visible for people like Sandra to access. Okay, so let's click onto it and get underway. There's two ways that you can go about allowing your employees to file their expense claims. So the main concept, I suppose, is the fact that if they are paying for things that are claimable, so that could be subsistence, car travel, train travel, hotel, that kind of thing. So if they're paying for that themselves and then claiming it back from you as the company they work for, then that is the most common use of this particular environment. But you'll notice I've got a statement import here. Now, what that allows you to do, if it's appropriate, is to either allow an administrator to upload bank statements from credit cards, okay, or statements from credit cards, or you can let the individual card holder update or upload is probably a better word, upload their statement, and what they'll then be in a position to do is just simply attach the evidence of those card transactions. So in other words, the receipts, okay, for whatever purchases they've been compelled to make. And that way you will then have the benefit of knowing that if they can't substantiate something with a receipt, then it's likely that it wasn't to do with company expenditure. But it does save quite a bit of time, as you can imagine, to bring in the descriptions and the pricing of each transaction on the card, and all they simply need to do is attach the image. Now, I don't have a means of being able to show you this today. What I will do though is I'll make reference to it as we go through the typical out-of-pocket reclaim process, okay, which is what we're going to look at now. So let me go on to create new expense. Now, the other thing to start off by saying is that approvals can sit holistically, okay, over the top of all your companies. So if you have 2 or 3 or more different trading entities, then you can either lock down the relationship for that employee to the company that they work in, or if they are sort of omnipresent across two or more, then give them visibility of the company that they're claiming the expense against, okay, and then they can pick that as part of their starting process, okay. So two types of expense that we can allow people to claim. Expense, which is what I'm going to start with first, which is going to be the actual item or event or whatever it might be, and then the one at the bottom, which is an add a mileage line. I'll do more about that when we get there. So let's start with expense line. And we, not surprisingly, we use this system ourselves here at Sicon. We use all the modules, in fact. So for myself, and I'll probably draw reference to that when we get to the mileage part, is that you can configure different mileage rates depending on whether somebody's using a company car, of course, or whether they're using their own car, which is what I am drawn into doing. So here I'm going to put a description as to what this particular line item is all about. So let's say hotel for training course, okay. And when did that actually take place? Well, let's pick a date in the past. So let's say I went there on Monday. What type of expense is this? Now, this is quite important. So when you create your types, okay, and then associate, by the way, the visibility of those types to people like Sandra, okay, then when you click on the relevant type, attached to that, as you'll suddenly see over here, will become visible. So if I click hotel, the right nominal information comes through, okay. So the users might not necessarily be finance savvy, okay, so you can take that pain out of the equation by creating your types, associating the types to the nominal code, and perhaps more importantly, which department Sandra actually works in. So they can be hotel for cost center 1, hotel for cost center 2, and so on. So associate the types to as narrow a band as you need to, and all they've got to do is pick it. Now, at the moment, you can see that the VAT rate here is exempt, okay? But the minute I actually say, oh yes, I have got a receipt to verify this, then again, the type is qualified with hotel claims are VATable, okay? So that means straight away we can insert that for them. So again, without people necessarily having the, you know, the wherewithal of appreciating all of that, again, you can take all that away from them, and you know that everything that they're going to go with going forwards is going to be perfectly accounted for. Right. We can also deal with foreign currencies if that was relevant, of course. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a £100, we'll say. And what the system then does is, you can see automatically it then nets out the relevant amount of VAT. Again, they don't need to work that out for themselves. If you were using project accounting in Sage, or if you maybe have or want to think about buying into Sicon projects, then there's a link there to associate this to a project. It's only there on my demo system, I hasten to add, because I've got that module switched on. If you're using this without project accounting or Sicon projects, then it won't be on the screen. Okay, so the screen will account for itself correctly. Now, the key thing obviously about this particular line that I'm working on is that I said I've got a receipt to attach. So if I go to attachments here, okay, then we can just upload or drag and drop, okay, an appropriate PDF, JPEG. I hasten to add that this could be anything. Okay, so it could be a spreadsheet, a Word document, a PDF, a JPEG. You could even drag and drop emails onto that button, okay, a combination of things, and that will all be presented across into the approvers screen, which we'll get to in due course, and then they can see and observe all the relevant evidence or justification, etc., for that hotel. So let's go and upload a file from my downloads folder, and I should, if memory serves me right, I think I have got a PDF for a hotel. There we go, that's good. So I'm just going to drag that onto there. Look, no, I'm not. I'm gonna open it because I've just said I'm going to upload it. There you go. Perfect. Okay, so back onto the details. So I can now save that and close and add more lines as may be appropriate for this particular claim. Okay, you'll notice how I can go back and edit. Okay, I could change my mind, throw it away. Okay, you can, by the way, before I forget, you can bring up alerts, okay, onto the system when they pick a type. Okay, so if it's subsistence, for example, you might as a company, you might have a limit as to how much subsistence claim that employee can go for. So £25, for example, for an evening meal whilst they're out and about or at the hotel, if it didn't include it in the board. So you can bring up alerts that just remind people, and by the way, enforce it. So if they try to put in a higher value, it'll default to what the max ceiling is for that particular type. Okay, let's go on to mileage. Now, Sandra, okay, is assigned to a vehicle, okay, and as you'll note, it's a company vehicle, okay, so the pence per mile reclaim is going to be adjusted, of course, to just cover the cost of the fuel that she's putting into the car, okay. If you want to set up a pool system, okay, so if she can move from one car to another, or if it is a private system, then tick the, or choose the appropriate vehicle relationship and the pence per mile, etc., and the adjustments if they're carrying passengers, etc., can then be adjusted. Okay, so we'll keep it at the one that it's on. We will then record that business mileage, okay, and if they are in a private system, then you can set up those parameters that say, okay, it's 45p a mile for the first 10,000 miles in a tax year and 25p thereafter, okay, and that's why we're recording it in that way. So we are going to go down here, and I'm just going to use Google Maps, which is quite handy. And again, just before I forget, everything you'll see me do now can all be replicated on the mobile phone. The app just has, in actual fact, a little bit of a bonus to it, in as much as you can open up the camera on your phone and use a piece of OCR technology when you scan the meal receipt or the hotel bill or whatever it might be, and the OCR mechanism will then transfer the details into the relevant boxes on the screen, and then you can just check it, make sure it looks good before you okay it. Okay, so that's one of the bonuses of using it on the app. Okay, so we are going to, let me think, I'm going to travel from my home, which is down here in Dartmouth, so TQ60QX, and I'm going to go to, let's go to the Sicon office. So that will be IP333TA. There we go. Now, was this a return journey? Could be, might be go one way, stay over there for a few days, drive back, however you want them to actually account for the mileage. I'm going to say yes, it was. And also, if it's relevant to people on the call with us today, if you want to say no, and if you're a multi-location company, so you can say no. If you're going from, say, Exeter to Bury St Edmunds, we have an office in Exeter, but you live near Exeter, then you can actually deduct a commute distance, okay, We don't apply that here, so I'm just going to say no, I don't need to deduct that, but that's what it effectively means. And we'll just calculate that distance. There we go. And you'll notice how I've got all the detail calculated and shown by Google Maps. Okay, so if I accept that, then conveniently that's what's returned in the journey detail. Okay. Now, you can allow people to make a mileage amendment, but they do need to declare a reason. And the mileage amendment might be a big accident on the A14 at Newmarket. I had to do a 20-mile diversion or whatever might be the rationale, shall I say. Okay, so that's all possible, but as I say, it normally needs to be qualified by a justifiable reason. On that Google Map display, by the way, you can also add up to 6 waypoints. So I did go from Dartmouth to Bury St Edmunds, but I stopped and went to see somebody in Newmarket, and that took me an extra distance, and that will then be calculated and applied into the description on the journey detail that you're looking at with me now. Okay, so let's save that. And again, you can see that's now added another line. I might need to edit that, etc. But that's going to be the claim for me today. I could take a copy of a voucher that basically just gives me the breakdown, so I've got it from my records. Okay, I hasten to add that everything that in this case Sandra submits, okay, then she can go back and look at her history of claims. Okay, so that's always possible as well, so she doesn't necessarily need to take a copy of the voucher. So 2 methods of operation: save, meaning I haven't finished entering my expense claim yet, I'm going to come back to it and add some more information, etc. Or on this occasion, we're going to do a save and submit. Now, this is going to send a notification, okay, to a approver, as we call them. And this could be Sandra's line manager. It could be somebody central, maybe in finance, that gets the claims from all the different teams. It might be, depending on how you've got your business structured, it could be you have an approver for a certain cost center or department within your business, and anybody doing expense claims, that goes to that person as opposed to the person who looks after cost center B or C or D, whatever that may be. Okay, so as many different approvers can be set up. They do need a license, as you might imagine. They may even be submitting an expense claim themselves, in which case it might need to go to someone who manages them. Okay, so that's the background as to what's happened with that notification. The other interesting thing to mention is the fact that they will have had an email sent to them generated by the approval system to say Sandra Mark has submitted an expense. Okay, now you can just allow those notifications to go immediately when people like Sandra say save and submit, or you can save the notification delivery up and let's say submit it every 4 hours, every day, because depending on, again, your numbers of people in the organization, the approvers might not be thankful for notifications pinging into their inbox like 1 every 5 minutes. So think about that when you're setting it up. Okay, let's come out from Sandra for now. And now we're going to be logging in as one of my approvers. So let's put his password in. Now, for me, Corey Robinson, he, as you can see, is quite a busy guy. He's got a number of different modules that he is tasked with approving the various different process needs. So he approves requisitions, he approves holiday requests, he does invoice approval. I alluded to that earlier. He approves timesheets from people who are clocking hours spent working on a project. The one that we're here to look at, of course, today is purely expense approval. Okay, and if that is all out, you could have a multi-module environment, but if that is the only thing that Corey is tasked to have to deal with, then that clearly is going to be the only thing that's going to appear on this dashboard screen. Okay, let's get into that. As you can see, he's got quite a number of claims outstanding that he needs to address. Okay, and the great thing to say here as well is that those notifications that go out to people like Corey aren't just saying you've got something to approve. They can also be set up to remind people like Corey that they have not applied themselves quickly enough to deal with those expense claims. So you can do these little reminder messages, and what the frequency of those are, again, as you might imagine, is entirely configurable, and that may need to be obviously changed dependent on maybe the module that they are having any responsibility for. Okay, so let's deal with the one that we've literally just put on now. You'll notice how we have generated what we call an expense ID. Okay, now in the background of this system, there is like an audit log. Okay, so who submitted what and when, who approved that request and when did they approve it? Was that request rejected? What was the reason for the rejection? Did it then go back to the user, and did the user edit the claim in accordance with the requirements of the approver and then resubmit it? In which case, when did they resubmit it, and was it then approved at that point? Okay, so it's effectively like an audit log. Because we're sitting outside of Sage, we just need to be clear and accountable for the activity that's going on, and that sort of sequence that I just described there, that's obviously appropriate across all the modules in the approval portfolio. So what can I see without going into the, I can see there's an attachment. That's obviously going to be the evidence of my hotel stay. I've got a little thumbnail here so I can get a complete overview as to what that is actually about. I can also see that it's only waiting for Corey to approve. If the expense was quite big, so let's say it involved a flight to Germany or something, then it could go to Corey initially, okay, because he's the line manager for the person submitting the claim. So that's Sandra in this occasion. But because it's a high value claim, it might need to go to a second person, the FC or something along those lines, okay. And again, those workflow routes, okay, they can be altered and set up and configured, as you might imagine, to modules in a different way depending on how you want them to work. Okay, so let's click on the arrowhead and I can now see the full detail. Okay, I can hover over my expense receipt for the hotel to get the detail, the confirmation that what I'm claiming for is right. Okay, over here I've got a green tick for I'm happy with it, or a red X to say no, I'm not. If they reject either part of the claim or reject all, as you can see here, then the approver has to type something into a screen which will pop up, okay, before they get an OK button to say I'm applying this rejection. Now, what happens there is that a notification will go back to Sandra and it will say something along the lines of Corey Robinson's rejected your claim. The reason is, and that is why we need to show them, because that's the notification they're going to get on email to say, ah, right, okay, I need to now go back in, edit that in accordance with Corey's request, and then resubmit it. Whilst the claim is pending approval, okay, so despite, again, Corey getting the reminders to say, hey, come on, get some of these expenses approved, then Sandra cannot alter the claim. Okay, and that's quite important. Okay, so she's locked out of going back into the claim until some action is taken with it by Corey. He could put it on hold, okay, and in that instance, as you can see, he's got to give a reason. Now, again, if he puts it on hold, Sandra will get a notification. It will say your expense claim is currently on hold. Corey says what the reason is. Okay, maybe it was a training course. I want to validate that, the course was of a quality, of use, benefits, etc. before I approve it. You will also notice there's a button to the right saying notify additional users. So this is a random way of saying I'd just like my colleague to have a look at this with me. So notify additional user, pick the user from the drop down list, and that user then gets a notification to say, excuse me, Corey has invited you to look at this expense claim, and they can go into their screen, click on there, and they'll see the claim that you're looking at with me now, and they can participate in approving it. It doesn't happen very often, I would have thought, but that's what it's there for. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to approve all. That disappears off my list of things to deal with, as you can imagine. Okay, and Corey can just now continue munching his way through the list, approving or rejecting as the case may be. Sandra, in the meantime, will have had a notification in her Outlook inbox to say Corey Robinson's approved your expense claim. So happy days, she knows she's going to get some money into her bank account in due course. Now, just before I come away from this environment and show you what's happened with that claim, just wanted to point out a couple of things that you might find useful. Now, if Corey goes on holiday or he goes on sick leave, then either he or an administrator user, as they're called, can step onto his account. Okay, so if he's forgotten or he's not in a position to turn his out of office on, okay, they or he can then pick from a predetermined list of alternative users, okay, approvers, that can carry out his work whilst he's not there. Okay, so instead of instead of those claims mounting up in his approval inbox, then they'll be sent across, in my case, to a lady called Suzanne. So that means that Suzanne has her own things, as you can imagine, whether they're requisitions, invoice approval, expenses, etc. She has her own list of things to do, but she'll also see that she's accounting for stuff that would normally go to Corey because the system's going to tell her that. Now, when she approves or rejects, in the audit log, it will say, Suzanne approved this on behalf of Corey Robinson. Suzanne rejected this on behalf of Corey Robinson, and why. Okay, so when he comes back from his sick leave or holiday, simply turning the out of office off will cause the system to go to Suzanne, look at down her list of items that she's not got around to dealing with yet, despite, I hasten to add, getting reminders to tell her to do her stuff as well as look at Corey's stuff. Okay, it will move anything that's still not been attended to back into Corey's list view. Okay, so he can just simply carry on where she left off. Second thing is, if you want to put it onto the phone on your mobile, go to this link here, look, in the settings that we're in right now, choose your operating system for your phone. So iOS in this example, open up the camera on your phone, scan that QR code, that will prompt you to a download link where you can put the app onto your device. The first time you open up the app on your device, there'll be a little hint to say, open the endpoint address, okay, and then the app will turn your camera on and it will scan that QR code. Now your phone is tethered to this web portal, okay. All you'll be prompted for, by the way, on the mobile is that when you account for your claim or whatever process you're doing, you will need to hit a sync button, a synchronize button, okay? And all that does is it looks at the web portal, pulls down anything else that you might need to be attending to as well as updating it with what you have approved or rejected on the phone. And that's what it will look like, again, just as a reminder. And depending on which modules, we're logged in here, by the way, into this device as Corey. So depending on what you've got Corey lined up to do, then this will be his screen to go into. And there's that sync button I talked about. The system will prompt Corey to press it. It's not a question of like, oh, forget or whatever. And he will not be able to get out the app until he's done a synchronization. Okay, we are looking to improve how the app communicates with the web portal. So depending on if you like what you're seeing with me today, you want to go ahead with it, you might get a version where the app is auto updating the web portal. Okay, right, let's come away from here now, and let me now go into my Sage 200 system. So because we now need to reimburse Sandra, of course, and we need to account for the expenditure that the company's agreed to pay for, then we need to have an account for Sandra, okay, on the supplier list. Okay, now for me, if I just narrow down that field of search to her account, what we've done on our demo system is we've just we're using alphanumeric codes, as often most people do when they set up Sage, but I've just prefixed XX because as a visible check, I know that that's going to be a member of my staff's expense account. Okay, so they're not a normal supplier. Okay, and there's an example of a credit card account. So on the credit card, company credit cards, of course, they're not like our credit cards. You pay off as much or as little as you want. They just collect the money that's owed to them on their statement by direct debit. So when you're doing a company credit card claim, it's going into that central account. Okay, so at some point, finance will be putting on the level of DD that's going to be collected, and that will then show them what the outstanding balance due to that card might look like from one period of claim to another. But for Sandra, okay, another way of doing this, by the way, that is quite common from my experience, is that people create an analysis code, okay, and they associate it with this supplier record, and they simply call it staff or staff expense, okay, and that way, when they're going into their routine period end payment processing, okay, they do a suggested payment run based on the analysis code set to staff expense, okay, because they might have an obligation to reimburse staff with their expense claims in a far quicker payment processing period than they would do maybe for their regular suppliers. Okay, so they might be doing them weekly, they might be doing them fortnightly. Okay, but it's just a nifty way of being able to focus the system's attention on just gathering together the expense claims for that payment run for your people that have obviously submitted them. So if I open this up, we'll be able to see Sandra's claim at the top of the screen that we've just sent through. So there it is. So that expense ID, okay, that's my internal reference to this claim. It's obviously been processed onto the system today. I can see, because I've got Sicon documents switched on, and this might be certainly something to think about when you're considering approvals, because as I said before, the people so far that we've been working with are not Sage users at all, but they do obviously have the feature set within the approval module to be able to attach things like receipts, pictures, contracts, spreadsheets, emails, etc. Then if you arm your Sage users with Sicon documents, okay, then down here, look, I've got two buttons that you probably won't have seen before. One of them is called Add Docs, and the other one's called View. Without getting too bogged down with it on this session today, but basically Add Docs, I can lift as a Sage user, I can drag and drop images, spreadsheets, Word documents, emails onto that button, and this count will then increase depending on how many attachments I collate with it. But these add and view docs, these aren't just for the reserve of the purchase ledger, they will be all over your Sage system. Okay, so they'll be on the sales ledger, the nominal ledger, the cash book, the order processing, the stock control, everything. Okay, so again, more information, maybe have a word with Darren and the partner account management team at EBS. They can give you a better insight into what the cost of ownership for that looks like, but as you can probably appreciate, it's quite a nifty thing to have. It's not expensive. Let me show you something else that we can do. So on the nominal detail, of course, we did the hotel to traveling and entertainment, as you can see. And when I hover over the narrative, you can see hotel for training course, which is what she typed in. Okay, therefore finance users can see what that claim is about and also which nominal account it's on. If I hover over the next line, I get the full breakdown of the return journey that she went on, okay, from Dartmouth to Bury St Edmunds. So I get to see that as well. So that's quite handy. Okay, so that's is the aftermath, if you will, of what's happened in the web or via the mobile phone when it comes through onto Sage. So now it's just a case, as I alluded to earlier on, of generating suggested payments for those expense claims and then going through a generate payment, generate a BACS file, issue the remittance advices. Of course, they can be emailed to the relevant members of staff because no doubt you'll have the email address on their account as you would do any other supplier. So it's making use of the purchase ledger in an additional beneficial way, so that you can actually, as I say, reimburse your staff. And that is me finished. Pleased to say, hope you've found it useful, insightful. Be great to be able to talk to you some more or do a personalized presentation to you if that's what you would like to undertake. And again, you can just reach out to Darren and the team at EBS to get that arranged. But from me today, thank you very much indeed for your time, and back to Darren to see if we've got any questions.
Thanks, Chris. There's a couple of things. I mean, there's
go.
How quickly can something like this be deployed? Now I know that's a little bit subjective, and for expenses, it would be different to something like the requisitions module because generally for expenses the requirements for setting the routes, etc., for the approvals is less than it would be probably for requisitions.
That's right. I mean, you're right. It is a little bit subjective, Darren, because it depends on the different companies' requirements, demands, circumstances, etc. I mean, you say it might be simpler for expenses. I think by and large you're probably right, because it's normally a head of department or a finance manager which is handling all the expense claims from around the business. So they're going to be a Sage user, of course, but they need to be an approver within the environment in order to check, qualify, approve. So if it's, I can't imagine it being any more than a few days work to install it, configure it, set it up, train people how to use it, of course. And I suppose I could throw the question back to you guys. Do you deploy quite a number of the approval modules for Sicon, don't you?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And it's quite varied, really.
Yeah. So I suppose one thing to maybe just add into the discussion, just so that the people on the call, if they've not dealt with Sicon before, as Darren alluded to, we are a Sage Tech Partner Plus provider that enables us to be able to develop, as I say, a number of products, as you can see here, 28 in total, that sit in or around the Sage 200 system. And we only work, by the way, exclusively with that product set. We don't develop products for Sage 50 or X3 or any other ERP solution that you might come across. So it is nailed firmly to the Sage 200 mast, but most of the time people like EBS who've got absolutely acres of knowledge and experience about Sage as well as Sicon, they will invariably deploy those products for you themselves. So they won't contract our consultants to either go to site or invariably work on teams to help set up and configure and train people how to use these modules. Okay, but we will work through EVS. Okay, so there'll be no debate about, oh, hang on a minute, do we ring Chris at Sicon? Do we talk to that? No, just go to Darren and the team at EBS for everything you can possibly want to know about any of these modules, and they will either provide you with the insight and the knowledge and the costs, of course, that you may need to know. And if they want me to come on and do a presentation like we've done today, then we can fix that up into the calendar and we can make a personal Teams presentation for you. So we don't sell any of these products directly to you as prospective end users. We work through the Sage 200 partner community because we want the users to feel that they're still getting that nice 360-degree support relationship with their Sage 200 provider, and they will be standing front and center in front of anything that we have here from Sicon that you might be interested in bringing on board. Okay, so that's how we work together. We work through the partner, not with you directly.
Perfect. I've got no other questions, so I think we can tie things up there. Thank you very much again, Chris, for doing that today.
Yep.
We'll no doubt have another presentation in the next month or two.
Yeah, definitely.
And we'll send out. Yeah, so do I. Always look forward to these. We'll send out invitations via email as we usually do, and look forward to seeing you again here. Thanks very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed.
Take care.
Cheers, and you, Darren. Bye-bye. Cheers, everybody.